simple sound and visuals. Video games began with modesty. With limitations in hardware, the emphasis was on imagination. As technology improved, boundaries widened, and games reached new scopes of realism. But not all developers have followed this evolutionary path. More and more are harking back to humble beginnings, reviving graphics and game mechanics that were near forgotten. What has brought on this apparent trend? Speaking to gamers, developers, and journalists, I sought to find out. So, how would you describe the term retro game?
It varies a lot, but for the most part, it's the ability to recreate that old style, the 2D style, real pixelated imagery. That's what a lot of people like about it at the moment.
I think retro gaming is sort of a modern movement to try and recapture both the simplicity of graphics and the simplicity of mechanics of the games that everyone enjoyed when they were children.
The games that I play nowadays are just, I find a lot less interesting, storyline a lot less engrossing. Maybe that is just because I'm getting a bit older. And playing those old school games sort of just give me that childhood thrill that I used to have back then when I played them.
Retro gaming's biggest appeal is in a return to the familiar and people going back to what the sort of games they enjoyed when they were younger and experiencing that all over again.
Are we currently seeing an increase in the market with retro games?
There's definitely an increase, but it depends on the way you look at it. In some aspects, it's an increase because there's more people creating it and it's easier to create.
Yeah.
The benefit of retro is you're not going for realism. You're going for pixel-based art.
Yeah.
You're going for like very simple scenes, like very little graphical interface.
Yeah.
So the games are really easy to make.
It's a lot easier to do that than it is to try and, animate and model a city. It's much easier to just sort of have a cool looking sprite on the screen and some fun gameplay.
If you have kind of one decent artist, they can create something abstract that can mean a whole bunch of different things, and they can, the animations don't necessarily need to be perfect. They just need to be kind of enough to trick the brain into believing it.
When you're going 3D, it has to be realistic. If you don't quite get realism, you look kind of poor. With pixel art, if you don't achieve realism, everyone goes, it's awesome anyway. It's endearing. No one cares. That looks really, really bad. That's cool.
Do you think that there's lots of benefits just being able to keep the graphics simple?
There's a big benefit in terms of keeping it as simple as possible. Thomas Was Alone is a good example. That was a really simplistic design for a video game that focused more on how you interacted with the environment and how the story played along with narrative than it was about how flashy the visuals were.
And that's one of the vast appeals of retro gaming. You can actually focus on the core gameplay mechanics and try and innovate in that space rather than trying to just have the best graphics or the best sound. And that's what a lot of indie developers are doing is they're making these games that look simplistic, but when it comes to the key mechanic, they put a unique twist on it.
I'd say you can do a new unusual idea as an indie which you cannot do as a AAA title. AAA companies make the same thing again and again and again because they know it makes money. So they go, we've released version 3 of this game, so now we're going to release version 4 of this game. It's going to make good money, and then we're going to release version 5 of this game because they know it's going to turn out money.
In this day and age when kids are kind of looking for more spectacular graphics and kind of more explosive and stuff, those are the kind of games that make it in the market, so the indie games and the retro games sort of get left behind.
But at the same time, a lot of the other developers are looking backwards as well instead of forwards. You look at what Nintendo did with stuff like the new Mario games on the Wii and the DS. You look at Donkey Kong Country Returns, it's going backwards instead of forwards. It's 2D, not 3D.
And I think what we're seeing at the moment with a lot of crowdfunding movements like Kickstarter is that companies that used to make games back in the 80s or the early 90s are now saying to their fans, look, we're going to make those games all over again, but we want your money to help us do it. And so far, fans have been more than willing to put their own money on the line with $4 or $5 or $6 million raised by some games to get that nostalgia into the modern day environment.
There's a lot of diversity in tastes, and it's not just, you know, the monoculture of, you know, let's just buy the latest Madden game or let's just buy the latest FIFA game. I think there's a lot, you know, people like a lot of diversity in their games, and it shows that there's people who are willing to put their wallet where their mouth is.
Would you say that some gamers are only really going retro style because that's the trend at the moment?
I think gamers are, in a way, getting a little tired of the current trends in modern gaming on consoles. There's too many blockbuster games, there's too many big budgets.
When games first came around, like a spaceship was just like 2 lines, you know, and asteroids were like just a couple of lines, and you just kind of used your imagination, and that kind of process was to a lot of people very interesting.
And not to sound like an old man, but you know, games nowadays have way too much graphics and way too many special effects.
It's losing purpose, I think. It's missing out that little ingredient that made retro gaming so unique and so charming, I guess.
And so there's a need or a desire to go back to the abstraction, to go back to imagination.
I think we need to look at retro games as a way of scaling back what we're trying to develop and just have more fun with it and try to be more imaginative with it. Instead of saying that every single video game has to look like real life, because that's not what video games should be. Video games should be getting out and away from the real world, not going back into it again.
With so many frequent retro game releases, where do you see the future of retro games?
Going back to retro, I think has helped the industry in some way, and I hope that it continues. I hope that there's a lot more studios that are able to go back to simpler times and try and make a market out of that.
But I think the future of the market for indie developers certainly will be a continued growth of accessibility to the technology that people are using. And I think they'll find exciting new ways to use the technology that haven't been thought of today, and I think they'll find exciting new mechanics that blend new stuff with old stuff.
We're taking concepts of what retro is and expanding upon it, and taking it in different directions that most industry veterans wouldn't have considered when they first started 20 years ago.
There'll always be people who grew up in that time and are willing to keep making the games, and with the new twist they're putting on nowadays, they'll influence hopefully a whole new generation, and it'll keep it alive for another generation after.
There'll always be a demand for things that are old and familiar, and I think that's something that's never ever going to change.